Hi, welcome everyone, and thank you for all of us who are joining this special discussion here today. My name is Steve Roach. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Regional Engagement and Volunteer Management for the Mid-Atlantic and Washington, D.C. As our daily routines are significantly impacted with physical distancing, Emory has developed a robust offering of digital experiences to strengthen connections within our Emory community during this critical time. The presentation you are about to hear is part of our ongoing digital learning programs sponsored by the Office of Alumni and Constituent Engagement and the Emory Alumni Association. We are focusing efforts on bringing lifelong learning to a variety of digital platforms to meet the needs of our alumni, students, parents, leaders, donors, and friends. Two pieces of housekeeping as we progress today: that this presentation is being recorded and we will be sending the full recording out to all who registered. Second, please feel free to type your questions in the questions section of the platform, and we will get to as many of the questions as possible following the presentation. Today, we are incredibly grateful to be joined by Hannah Romick, 03 MBA, CEO of Conscient Strategies, and Randi Braun, 10 College, founder of Something Major, and an executive coach specializing in working parents. They will be sharing their expertise about thriving in working parenthood, especially in this day and age of COVID-19. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Hannah and Randi for today's conversation.
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. I think we're in week 6 for many of us around the country of sheltering in place and lots of safe distancing. And I hope, I know Randi joins me in hoping this finds everybody staying healthy, both mentally and physically, and just getting through. And I think today is really, our topic today is really apropos to especially times of crisis like these. How do we really manage ourselves, manage our businesses, and manage our families through all stages of life. And so that's our focus today. I'm super excited that Randi Braun is going to be joining us for our Women in Leadership series. So for those of us who have been around on these calls over the years, this is a series that Emory loves to do, and I love being part of it. So before we jump in too much to the subject today, Randi, I'd love for you to tell a little bit about yourself, and then I'll take a few minutes to tell a little bit more about myself, and then we can get to our Q&A.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all. I am so thrilled to spend the lunch hour with you. Again, I'm Randi Braun. I'm the founder and CEO of Something Major Coaching, and I'm an executive coach, consultant, speaker, and trainer specializing with working women and working parent leaders. So really just excited to spend this time with you all. Just a little bit of background about me. I am the accidental coach and the reluctant entrepreneur. So I know that we got one question in advance about making career transitions with young children. You're looking at career transitions with young children. I had my 2 kids in 2 years and 6 days, doubled my compensation in my sales career during that time. My story got around. People were asking to spend time with me. An interest in coaching was born, and a business was launched shortly thereafter. So I really spend all of my time working with women leaders and their teams, and parent leaders as well, thinking about how can they level up on their professional journey, thinking about what their vision for leadership is, and scaling their impact and their voice accordingly, and then helping them navigate acute transitions. So whether it's a parental leave or a new baby or figuring out what the heck is happening in COVID-19. I really spend my time helping people with optimization versus remediation. And we'll turn it back over to Hannah to introduce herself as well.
Thanks, Randi. I love your story. I feel like we're kindred spirits. Like we keep talking about how we're like same, but different. I also am an accidental executive coach and entrepreneur. I've always loved being part of a wider team and really supporting the visionary leaders that I've had the honor of working for over the course of time. And then similarly gave birth to my son about a year after I gave birth to my business, is how I like to term it, and figured out how to raise a family and raise a company all at the same time. And it was incredibly challenging and inspiring all at the same time, and have really enjoyed watching everything kind of work in tandem as We like to say at Conscient Strategies, it's all about work-life integration. Life has to work all together. There's no such thing as balance in 2020. And so Conscient Strategies is a consulting firm, and we focus specifically on how do organizations integrate change into the way they go about doing business. So here we are, 2020, even before COVID hit all of us. Change is just the nature of how business needs to be done. And so we have a lot of really fun clients and partners with whom we work to take that, instead of having big change activities, but rather transition that into the way in which you do your business or your organization. So with that, I'd love to, let's just take a few minutes. Randi, do you want to just, what is coaching?
Yeah, I mean, coaching, and Hannah, I feel like you talk to one coach, you get one answer, you talk to another coach, you get another. The way that I think about coaching is really about helping my clients crystallize what their dreams and their goals are, and working with them to make those dreams and those goals their realities.
That's great. Thanks. I'm sure that really resonates with so many of the people on the call. I just also want to say, Randi and I are more than happy to chat for the next 45 minutes and would love to integrate some of your questions that you may have as we go through this conversation. So again, just reiterate, feel free, use the chat function, use the question function. We'd love to bring you into this conversation as much as possible. So Randi, you focused your business on helping working parents managing work and life. I would imagine many on this webinar with us today would love to hear some of the biggest insights you have from your clients. What are some of the main areas where you focus your coaching conversations? What are some of those trends?
Yeah, I will say I'll keep it limited just today to some of the conversations that I'm having with parents who maybe 6 for, some of the clients who I work with outside of the DC region, where I know that you and I both live, have been actually in this for more than 6 weeks. Really thinking about how they can move the dial from surviving in a COVID-19 world to thriving, whether that means they're a parent who's been furloughed or feels insecure about perhaps what's going to be in their job or not be at their job in the foreseeable future. Or for parents, I work with folks in healthcare and medicine and manufacturing, people who are actually busier than ever as part of the response in one way or another. And a few things that I'm seeing are really just, if I could bottom line it into a few key trends. Number one, it is so disconcerting. I think most of us are adapting to a quote unquote new normal. I say some days are easier than others. Yesterday was definitely an other in our home, for sure. And I think what's so hard for people is, whether we recognize it or not, we typically live in a kind of black and white world, and we're really dancing together in the gray for the first time. And in this new tango of COVID-19 life, with all its drama, with all of its boldness, a lot of the plays or decisions or structures that we had 6-8 weeks ago just don't exist. And they just poof, disappeared overnight. And so there are a few key questions that I recommend parents ask themselves when they're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, or like they're just struggling to make a decision, whether it's big or small. One is, what can I control for right now? The more we sprint towards the things we can control for, the more we mitigate just by nature the things that we can't. Number two, what's important to me right now? Like in this moment at 12:15 p.m. on a Friday. The flip side of that, the third question is, how do I want to live my values right now? So if that won't kind of shock the system into thinking about what you need to get clear on, nothing will. And then the last one, Hannah, because I think it's so important when I hear parent guilt or shame around, am I showing up fully for my kids right now, is, am I judging myself in a COVID-19 world by the standards and metrics which I judged myself by 6 weeks ago? And I'll just give you one example of this briefly. I get a lot of commentary from parents, whether they're my clients or my friends or colleagues and peers, saying, I just feel so guilty. I'm with my kids all day, and I used to be so present when I was with them, and now I'm barely present with them. I don't know about you, Hannah, how it is with your son, Levi, but with me and my kids in a pre-COVID-19 world, I was only really around them maybe 2 hours a day, maybe 3 on a good one. And I was sure to be present during that time. But if I judge myself and say I need to be present every minute I'm in the house with them now, that doesn't translate, right? And so we all have to recalibrate so that we're not driving ourselves crazy. And that is the difference between, surviving and thriving. And I hope some of those questions help people ground.
Yeah, no, those really resonate. I thought it's great that you're having people think about their values. What are 1 or 2 tips you would give someone to help them even understand what that means? How would you start saying, hey, this is a value for me, and this is what it means in the next week?
Yeah, I mean, this is the easy part and the hard part of this work, right, Hannah?
Yeah.
It really just comes down to paying attention, right?
Mhm.
When are times where you feel happy, excited, fulfilled, relieved, right? And just paying attention a little bit. Another thing that can help you if you're like, I just don't even know where to start with this, it's hard for me to grasp, is just, at the end of the day, just journaling for a week and saying, what was the moment today where I felt like I was at my best? And once you start collecting a few data points on that, it's super easy to get themes, right? And so, examples of values, some of the values that I have in my life are connection, service, achievement. And when I think about how I want to really lean into those, for me, obviously, service and connection is what's really, really getting me through this. And it's allowed me to feel really good about some changes I'm making in my business, right? Whether it's opening up some free slots for pop-up coaching, just because I want to be there for people, even if there's no quote unquote business incentive to do that. It's what helps me bring my fullest self to the regular clients I have, so to speak.
That's great. Thanks, Randi. I'm sure that really resonates with so many people. I'm going to go back a little bit and dig in deeper to what we were just talking about with being a parent and COVID and just the expectations we set for ourselves. I know when I was a new parent with both a baby and a new business, there was never enough coffee, never, to overcome my fatigue. And I feel like I'm just like back in the war zone all over again. And it's just all the blocking and tackling. We're just all so overwhelmed. I literally was talking to 2 people earlier today about how this week has just gotten away. It's Friday and like how it got away from me. I was like keeping it together. And then this morning I was like, and there we go. I hit it. We got there. So what additional tips do you have for just helping with the overwhelm?
Well, I'm just laughing because as you talked about being tired, I just had an involuntary eye twitch, literally.
I had those last Friday.
You get those from physical fatigue, but you said it, and it happened as you said it. It wasn't even like you said it and it triggered it. Like that's how in sync we are, Hannah. It's a great comparison. So I know some people who are joining us have smaller kids. I know that some people who are joining us have older kids. And I think everyone in their parenthood journey is going through this fatigue and disappointment and sadness in some ways, in different ways. I was talking to one woman a few weeks ago. She's Virginia based, and it was right around the time that they canceled SATs, AP exams, the prom, the school year. And for her, with a junior rising to her senior year, that was devastating to her in a way where someone like me or you, Hannah, who has kids under 5, it's just, like you said, blocking and tackling. So, one of the keys that I find is really around self-care. I know that self-care can be polarizing. Some people are like, I couldn't live without this. Other people are like, this is woo-woo and it's indulgent and it's green juice and massages. But I just want to give you a data point. One of the things I love about my coaching practice is that I work with everyone from emerging leaders, say at like a director level, to C-suite executive leaders at Fortune 500 companies. And one of the things I've observed in my coaching practice, especially with some of these working mother leaders who are at the apex of their careers, the top of companies who you read about in the newspaper, is that they are actually the most ritualistic and, dare I say, militant about taking care of themselves. Because they know that when they're running a Fortune 500 company, there's no room for burnout. There's no room for them to not be able to perform and bring themselves to that job for not just a week, not just a month, but year after year after year. And so there are just 4 places where I encourage people to think about self-care. One is physical. That's what we think about with working out, walking outside, eating, drinking, sleep. And I don't want to minimize that, but it's not the only one. I just want to talk about emotional self-care really briefly. very important. So thinking about what you need to do to take care of yourselves emotionally, maybe it's lessening social media and news intake. For me yesterday, it was literally leaving the kitchen while my 2 kids were having dinner. I was like, I just need to take a moment, and being unapologetic about that. And then thirdly and fourthly is intellectual self-care. So if you're a person who loves to read or create or write, even just carving out 30 minutes of that a week will pay such a dividend with the investment of your time. And then lastly is spiritual. So I have one client, she, for her, it's organized religion. She really misses going to her church. And so finding ways to cultivate that has been huge for her. And yet I have another client who's discovering mindfulness and meditation for the first time. So remember, we can't show up for ourselves. We can't show up for our teams, and we can't show up for our kids, for God's sake, if we are the most burnt out mess. The last thing I'll say is I have a guide on my website. It's somethingmajorcoaching.com, where I have tons of free on-demand resources, and I actually have a guide, if you're interested in this, for 6 specific tips for cultivating self-care in a busy COVID-19 world.
That's awesome. Thanks. Yeah, I know one of the things I've done for myself is signed up to a subscription for flowers, because I decided that I wasn't going to keep it all together. We weren't going to have a beautiful home, like clean all the time, and we're going to have flowers.
And I love that, right? Like that's an example of that very elusive emotional self-care. And what's also great about that is you're supporting somebody else's small business, right?
Exactly.
Hannah, I know that you and I, as self-employed entrepreneur women, small business owners, that's a way that I see the world differently that I just frankly didn't experience the last economic crisis through. So, that's something that I've been thinking about in terms of some of the subscriptions and services that I have, even just supporting my favorite restaurants. And I think something you mentioned is really important. It's about cultivating new rituals, right? So in our last work lives, before COVID-19, especially with our kids, we had routines around the nanny or the daycare or the school bus, around when we got our morning coffee, when we went to the office. If you're someone like me who worked from home before, but now your home office has been completely invaded by everybody else, we've lost the rituals. And so thinking about where we want to build new rituals with our kids, thinking about where we want to build new rituals with our work life, that's been something that's been really impactful in our home. And as an executive coach, Hannah, I'm sure that you can relate to this. It's fun to watch my clients in their different jobs with their different kids of different ages build lots of rituals themselves. And it's something that's giving them a lot of energy to, again, show up as a parent, show up for themselves, and perform at work.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. What is your favorite ritual you've shifted and started to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been doing a sushi night once a week, me and my husband. And it's kind of like our in-home date night. Another thing that we love to do is play cards. And we've started a race to see who can be the first to get to 1,000 points on gin. It's like we're watching a lot of Netflix, like, right, we can still only do it at night. I envy the people who like populate my Instagram feed who are baking sourdough with either like adult children who are home visiting from college, or for them from, other cities where they lived in. But it's something that we're just building ritual around, and it's something that I look forward to is those nights where we eat sushi and play gin. And it's a little competitive, and I'm winning. No one's counting score, but at least now this is recorded and
of course for counting score. You just said achievement was one of your favorite things. Of course we're keeping score.
Of value. And one of the things
I
love this actually comes from Brene Brown. I never thought of achievement as a value. Some of you may know her. I call her the patron saint of emotionally intelligent leadership. And she had achievement on her list of values. And it really helped me think about how to frame, my ambition and my drive in a way that I can see it through the lens of a value. And that's been really impactful for me as I think about who I want to be, right? Because Hannah, imagine that as a fellow executive coach, thinking about some of these things for yourself, right?
Crazy. You're a wild woman. So let's talk about working with teams. I'd love to I'm sure you're talking to tons of your clients about how they pivot and shift and flex their team engagement. What the look and feel is so different. We're all on Zoom non-stop. I know by 2 or 3 p.m. my eyes start to flex. I can feel the differential in being so focused on the screen as opposed to past lives where I had the opportunity to break. how does communication and what do you think is going to make it most effective for some of the people on the call to implement?
So I have some thoughts, but Hannah, I would love for you to kick off your
Yeah.
thoughts. I think you're being too humble. This kind of team and organizational change management, as much as I'm seeing some great observations from my vantage point, this is truly your area of expertise. So I'm going to kick it to you to kick it off on this one.
You know, it's so funny. I'm putting together a training session for a team of coaches on Monday, all about how we shift to the phone coaching and how you do group coaching over the phone. And one of the things for us is truly the listening. How do you listen more and do more active listening, which is really paying attention, asking the right questions, being totally present. And then how do you also bring in the mindful listening? So how do you just listen for rustling of papers? Can you listen for any sort of anxiety, any sort of fear, any sort of acceptance within the group that you're working with? And how do you truly like eliminate all of the barriers that may be and distractions that may be around you? So how do you take 5 minutes before you get onto a meeting and just center yourself and say, okay, here's the 1 or 5 things I'm going to walk away from this conversation having accomplished, and here are the ways in which I'm going to help this group get there. So that, sorry, I just see a question has come up. Thank you, Steve. So those are some of the things that we've noticed and are working with our clients to help achieve, is that shift, because so much of our interaction when we're in person is based on visual cues. And I think the stat is that 90% of our interactions when we're face to face are on the visual cues and what our brain receives from what we see as opposed to what we hear, working with them on just deeper listening.
I think all of that completely resonates from what I'm seeing and what I'm observing. You know, when I think about, you know, the team impact on individual parents, especially some of the parents that I work with, I would argue that communication has never been more important between working parents and their teams, whether it's the way they report up, whether the way they report, they manage down, the way they manage lateral stakeholder relationships, if they're client facing, the way that they handle those externally facing relationships as well. And it is so important for working parents to be confident and unapologetic about their communication right now. So a few tips that I recommend is developing a predictable schedule. So know when you're going to be on with your kids and when you're going to be available with your company. If you can make that so that it has continuity every day or on certain days, that's really helpful. I recommend when it comes to communication, not just sharing that, but actually physically blocking it on your calendar so that others can see. So the way my husband and I, for example, have been splitting the day is he typically takes the morning to work and I have the kids, and then we switch off in the afternoon. Now, sometimes we need to flex or spot each other for calls that come up, and we just communicate with people, and our stakeholders both know right now when we're available and how to reach us. So really being unapologetic but direct is going to make all the difference. And I know that there's a lot of anxiety that a lot of the parents that I speak with have, especially who work in corporate environments, which is, am I going to be perceived as slacking or less available? And I would say now is not the time to be shy about deputizing and delegating. It's going to be much more impactful to do 70% of your normal workload at 100% of your normal performance versus doing 100% of your normal workload at 70% of performance. And so I really do encourage you to have those conversations and really communicate directly about what you need. The last thing I would offer is, I'm a huge fan, and again, I'm biased because coaches really rely on powerful questions for seeking answers, is thinking about where you can use powerful questions and insightful questions to really get at what is truly required. When is it really due? Who else needs to be involved? Who needs to review? And so just thinking about ways where you can take a little bit more control around managing boundaries through being predictable and reliable, but also unafraid to delegate and deputize and perform the work that you can do at tip-top levels of performance. That's going to not just reflect positively on you on the office, but I have a hunch that you're going to feel a lot better, a lot more fulfilled, and you're going to do a lot less of that working at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. Or like one woman who I was speaking to last week who's waking up at 4:30 in the morning to do work. That is just untenable, right? Hannah, to your point, there is not enough coffee in the world for that.
I 100% agree. One of the main things we do with our clients here at Conscient Strategies is work with them on shifting to an outcome-driven organization. So who cares when things are being done, how much effort one person puts into it versus another. It's not about them being at your desk from 9 to 5. It's about what outcomes to your achievement. We are very much an achievement-driven company. Like, what are you accomplishing, and are those meeting the greater goals of the organization? Right now, everybody is trying to survive. So what are you doing to help your organization or help your company survive this crisis?
And Hannah, to that point, a few other useful tips that I would share for parents. You know, when I worked in my corporate job, I was very clear with the teams that I worked with and the people who reported to me on something very important when it comes to boundaries. I said to them, I have 2 young kids. I read and write emails and do my work when it's convenient for me. So that means when you see emails come in, I am a morning person. I wake up with what I think are my greatest, freshest ideas. So if you used to work on my team, it would be unsurprising to see emails from me at 6:30, 7:30 in the morning. And I always told my team, I read and write emails when it's convenient for me. So know that if you write me an email at 9:30 p.m., I almost certainly am not going to respond to it. But when I email you back at 7 a.m., I don't expect you to pick that up until you're back settled into the office until 9 a.m. I would also tell people, if it's a real emergency, pick up the phone and call me. And for parents, as you're setting these boundaries around, you know, when you're going to work, when you want to be available, how you want to be flexible, a great way to kind of filter the information that you feel responsible for responding to when you're quote unquote off the clock at work is telling people, hey, I'm not going to check my email from 12 to 5 when I'm on duty with the kids. If you truly need me for something, please pick up the phone and call me. In our very virtual world, I'm telling you, that's a real deterrent. They will find a way to figure it out. And then the last, right? No, I'm serious.
So true.
I had that rule in my corporate life for almost 10 years. And do you know how many times someone picked up the phone and called me?
Probably 2.
Once.
Yeah.
Once for nearly an entire decade. And it was actually important. And I'm glad that they did, right? I told them, I had the phone to my ear. I remember I was putting something into the oven to feed my kids dinner at like 6 o'clock at night. But I picked up the phone. And then the last thing I would say is thinking about how you want to time block your schedule beyond just when you're going to be on the clock with work and off the clock with kids. And so I highly recommend bringing some civility to your life by really creating a schedule for yourself. So when are you going to have that self-care time, whether it's working out or something else? When are you going to have time to actually do work? One of the things that I'm seeing with a lot of the parents that I speak with is that they maybe get 4 to 5 hours of work time during the core workday every single day, and they're spending every single minute of it on conference calls, on Zoom meetings. And so it's happening is they're not able to sit down to quote unquote deep work until 4:30 in the morning in the most extreme case I mentioned, or 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. That is no way, because day after day, you are going to burn out. And so I recommend, even if it's just 20 to 30 minutes at the front end and back end of the day, you need some prep time, you need some wrap up time. And I also recommend scheduling in what I call agility or flex blocks. So one random 30-minute window on your calendar where it's almost held as kind of like a floater. That way, if that random, you know, all hands meeting comes up and you absolutely have to join it, you're able to shift around the other things that were on your calendar so that you can get things done. What I'm seeing with a lot of parents, Hannah, is that they're scheduling their days to be so compressed, there's no margin for error. So if things change or get added, they're up till 11, 12 o'clock trying to figure out how they can get all the work done, and it's just not tenable.
Right. It's how do you make it work and how do you get it all done? Either trusting others on your team, to your point earlier, or accepting that some of it's just going to take a little bit longer than our quote unquote norm, what we are used to being able to accomplish. We have a question. Sorry, did you want to add one more point?
No, go for it.
There's a question. I'm giggling because I remember when you posted a picture of your work from home office on LinkedIn. And it was like all the rage the first week of quarantine to share your like new working arrangement. So somebody on the call wants to know, how have you adapted your physical space to build new routine, both for yourself, your children, and your partner or your family?
Okay. True confessions. This is the perfect tip. Hannah, you know, because we've done video chats in my regular office space. Is this my regular office space?
It is not.
Right. My regular office space, which by the way, shout out to Heather Disabella Design. She's the best. I love my office. I featured her in my newsletter recently. This is a part of my master bedroom right now because my internet is not working well, as Hannah also experienced in my office. And it's certainly not working if you're joining us live and you're on the East Coast and you're having this horrible rain and wind today. I'm just adapting by adapting. Probably I'll just heard my kids scream from downstairs. And so literally I have pushed out the dresser. I am sitting on, Hannah, you know, not my beautiful winged gray tweed chair. I am sitting on a folding chair, okay? And here are the shutters in my bedroom. And so the truth is I'm adapting. In my home office, even when the internet is working, we've had a construction project going on next door. And I literally, thank God it was a phone, not a video conference. I had to step into the ensuite bathroom and sit on the floor next to the shower to take a phone call. So if you're someone who is like, I am not doing a good job at figuring this out, I live in a small apartment that works great for city living when we are only all together on the weekends, I feel you. Steve, who took himself off video, he was just broadcasting from his beautiful suburban home, which I've never been more jealous of as somebody who lives in the city. But Hannah, in terms of some tactical tips, one of my clients is just using her car to take any meetings where she needs some guaranteed quiet. And so she's
that's so great.
You know, she's stepping into her car. Also, feel free to say hi to people on video and then take yourself off video if you need to. Funny enough, I was doing a corporate training for, I won't say who the company is, but like they are a brand who you know and who you probably use. And somebody literally, just talk about trust, Hannah, on the team. Somebody literally announced, I'm taking myself off video to nurse now. I love this. I literally said, I applaud you.
I would have been like, you don't need to go at video. It's okay. We've all been there, done that. That's so funny.
And then I was like, she doesn't know me. I was like, yeah, you do you, mama. And so, you know, I think we've all seen people's dogs, babies, you know, I think rules. I love that people are using the virtual backgrounds. It's better to take yourself off video than have anything, like it's one thing for me to tell you this is my bedroom. It'd be pretty awkward if I was broadcasting from my bed itself. So just
although I have been on some calls with people where they are flagrantly sitting in their bed and you can tell they're holed up in their bedroom because that's the only place they can have a quiet conversation. I admit I am fortunate to have a house that has a yard and a porch. And so our front and the nice days that we've had in the last few weeks, I have fully taken advantage of and sat on my front porch just to like hear the birds chirping in the background. That's awesome.
So Hannah, just to recap, she has chirping birds and a porch.
Yes.
I have construction and calls on the bathroom floor.
Awesome. Yes.
We are truly two ends of a continuum. And so just to close, kind of like close this up, Hannah, I would say that like anywhere you are, anywhere on that continuum is just great, as long as you're making it work for you. So I also just try and take it with a sense of humor. I'm like, oh my God, these are the stories I'm gonna tell. The conversation I had on the floor of the bathroom, great, it's a new engagement that I'm gonna kick off later this week. You know what I mean? So like, quarantine for the win. Like we're all gonna, I said we're living our values, we're controlling for what we can control for, we're not judging ourselves. You know, anyone who spent more than 5 minutes with me, Hannah, you and I have gotten to know each other this year. To me, I have a sense of humor about everything. And I literally laugh sometimes when I think about, as a working parent, what gets me through. And so that's helping me. And I encourage you all to think about what is just like the funny moment of your day.
Yeah, no, 100%. I want to open up and give some time to others to ask questions. So I'm actually going to pause and just let I'm going to go to the comfortable pause and see if we get any questions before I keep going with our conversation.
And Hannah, while we wait for those questions to come in,
Want to bring up your framework?
Yeah, can we walk through this framework? Lane, can you send me the presenter controls one more time?
Did you get it?
Let's see, I want to share my, can you guys see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Let's see, I am less familiar with this platform as I am with others.
Let's just reshared.
So what I want to bring up on the screen while we're waiting for people's questions to come in is a framework that I have for how you can go about segmenting your time and making a game plan for how to win. Let's see. Oh, can you guys see my screen now?
There it is.
Excellent. So I highly recommend thinking about when you are making your own Thriving While Remote blueprint is segmenting your personal, professional, and your family and relationship aspects of your life, because we can't integrate them all together meaningfully until we actually kind of separate them out and do a little bit of auditing. Getting really clear about what the core needs are. So what do you absolutely need to do at work? What do you absolutely need to do for yourself? And if you hear my screaming 20-month-old in the background, what do you need to do for your family and relationships? But I also encourage you to get a little aspirational. So I know some people were on the precipice of big promotions or looking for new jobs, or maybe they're looking for a new job right now. It's great to still have goals professionally at work. For yourself and for your family and relationships, but it is really powerful to segment out what's a true need and what's a true goal. And then to make this as actionable as possible, I recommend auditing this every single weekend and thinking about for the week ahead, where are you going to say yes? What's one place at work, one place at home with your family, and one place for yourself you're going to say yes in the coming week? And where are you going to say no to something? So for example, last week I said no to folding any laundry, and I used that extra 15 minutes 3 nights out of the week to watch TV, because that was more meaningful to me last week with the kind of week that I was having. So they can be things big or small. Feel free, if people are on the phone and you want to screenshot this, I'm going to take it down in just one moment as we turn it over to Q&A. But I just want to offer this as a framework, and why I like to revisit it every single weekend is because your needs and goals are probably changing week to week, and auditing how good you were in sticking to the things you were going to say yes to and sticking to the things you were going to say no to can be really helpful in, again, seeing where in either your professional, personal, or family and relationships life can you move the dial a little bit more from just surviving to thriving. So I'm going to take my screen off and let's see if this works. And you're back. So hopefully that was a helpful framework for some people.
I think that's great. Yeah. I this morning was so inundated that I am the kind of person who cannot stand when I have dirty dishes and like just mess in the kitchen part of the house, because I just think it's gross. And this morning I was like, I'm just going to ignore it. We're going to say no. It's just going to be dirty, and that's just how it's going to be. And that was okay for today. I'd love to hear from any of our attendees. If you don't have any questions, if you want to share with others, what is one of the big takeaways or one of the big successes you've had over the last 6 weeks, or win, as it were, for yourself? If you want to share that with us, we'd love to hear what one of your wins was. And then while we're waiting for people to populate in the chat function, I'd love to talk a little bit more about those boundaries that you were talking about earlier, and just really explore some of those. To your point, what are you going to say yes to and what are you going to say no to, and how do you give yourself permission to do that? And again, for those of you who are listening in, watching, I'd love to hear what your win was over the last few weeks.
Yeah, so, I think there are so many places that we can draw boundaries, and that's why I like to segment it between professional, personal, and family and relationships. I know that some of us, we need to show up for our kids. Some folks who might be joining, they might be in a place in their life where they're also caregiving for, let's say, an elderly family member, or maybe they're a member of the sandwich generation. And so those needs are also really acute for them. And so just thinking about where can you give in service to others while also still being in service to yourself. So, again, professionally, I will push on thinking about where you can deputize and delegate. Again, better to do 70% of your work at 100% of your impact level than 100% of your work at 70% impact. Number, right, when it comes to family and relationships, I personally, before we went live, Steve and I were talking about how I was FaceTiming with my mom, and she was basically babysitting my children via the iPhone.
My mother-in-law does this for us every single day. My son now knows, oh, mommy, you have a conference call. I'm going to go talk to Nani. Like,
Totally.
it's terrible and awesome at the same time.
And that works for them and it works for us. But I also don't feel accountable to get back to every single text message, every single that from everybody, right? Because if I spent all of the time that I had not parenting my kids and not working, doing every single social or family FaceTime or text message, I would have no time left for myself to read or to do any of the other activities that I want to do. And so you're not a bad family member or steward to your community, to your friends, or to whatever circles you have if you don't want to join the weekly FaceTime Zoom call. I was on one of these with a group of peers the other night, and it got to 8:45 and I was just like, guys, I gotta go, I'm glazed. So just thinking about where some of these boundaries, big and small, are. For me also with work, one of the things, my typical office space is detached from our house. It's an annex on our lot. And so, what I did yesterday was I actually left my computer in the case in the annex overnight. I didn't even want to be tempted this morning when I knew I was going to be on duty with my kids to try and pop them in front of something and do work, because I committed to myself that I was going to be present with them on a certain activity this morning. So it's really about the little wins. And the audit's really been helpful for me in just checking myself around what's actually important to me.
That's great. A question that just came in that I think is really apropos as we come to the end of our hour is, what types of skills, this is something that I know we bounce around in our heads over with our team, is what do you think is actually going to stick? What's going to be adaptable? And what is the return to, I don't believe in this new normal, because I think it's the transformation we're going through right now personally. And what do you think, what tactics or skills or habits do you think are going to work for kids' routines and family life going forward?
Yeah, so I wrote about this on March 12th. So I'm on the record with my predictions.
Love it.
And it's on my site. It's, will COVID-19 bust these 3 workplace myths? The first is, I think we're going to see a huge shift away from hugging culture.
Yeah.
That's personally a hard one for me. I'm totally physically affectionate and very comfortable with people and hug. And I often have to check myself because that's not comfortable for other people. And so I think we're going to see a rewriting of the rules physically in the workplace. It's interesting. Me Too started a big shift around this. And I read an article, I was like, will COVID-19 actually be the thing that takes us over the finish line? So there's that. Number 2 is, I think that we are all going to reassess work travel. I actually think you will see a spike once we have a vaccine of work travel. And then I think we are going to see an evening out. Work travel is extraordinarily expensive. And frankly, one of the things that is keeping some companies from having to do things like layoffs and furloughs is that they're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars in H1 and probably H2 in travel expense. Yeah. And then lastly, this is about working parents. I'm really bullish that working parents are finally going to have the respect that they deserve for being the most resilient, resourceful, and creative members of our corporate cultures.
Yeah, no, I agree. I saw an article last night that I didn't have a chance to read that was like, COVID is officially bringing out the nonsense that is work-life balance, and there is no such thing anymore. To your point, people are working like 3 extra hours at night as a result. This whole idea of being able to parent full-time and work full-time is bonkers. Lane just sent us a great question for first-time parents, which is certainly, congratulations if we have people on the phone who are expecting their first-time child. It's certainly such an anxiety-driving activity without COVID around, and it's so exciting. And things to consider during COVID, I have to think about this one for a second, but things to consider during COVID about how do you share that with your employer?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm working with a client right now. She's a first-time parent who has been returning from her maternity leave in this crazy world, and her role is changing at work. So she's going through 3 massive transitions at once. Like, it would be hard enough to just return from your first parental leave. It'd be hard enough to navigate COVID-19 as a working parent, even if, you know, Hannah, you're someone like us who's like, you know, we're pretty adjusted to working parents, right? And then, you know, it'd be a lot if you were just navigating on a normal day, shifting in to a new role and leveling up. And, you know, I said to her, I said, the good news and the bad news is like you're ripping off the Band-Aid on 3 really hard things all at once. And so again, it's about thinking just really clearly about how do you want to own your message at work around your goals, your boundaries, your needs. It's about time blocking on your calendar, and it's about just taking it easy on yourself, right? If there's anything I can recommend, if you only take one thing away from today from me, it's really just try and give yourself grace. I mentioned that, you know, I think of COVID-19 as this tango. It's so bold, it's so dramatic. And, you know, I don't know if anyone here has seen the Will Smith movie Hitch, but there's this really funny scene, right? He's trying to teach him how to dance, and he's like, just keep it in the box, keep it in the box. And if you've never seen this clip, please Google or YouTube Will Smith Hitch movie, keep it in the box. And it's like, this guy could not tango if his leg depended on it, but we just got to keep it in the box, right? Right. And it's so trite, but it's really one day at a time. It's about, what are you going to say yes to today? What are you going to say no to today? Where are you judging yourself in a way that no one else sees you? And again, I have one client who, she said to me, Hannah, just one more thought on this. She actually sent me an email. She said, I feel like I've been waiting for my superpowers to just materialize. And once I figured out it was about the small wins, it's turned everything. And I told her, I was like, oh my God, I was like, what a great articulation, right? The superpower is what you derive when you rack up a few of those wins day in and day out for a week or 2. Then you actually feel like you can step into your superpower.
So great. Thank you. We've got some wins. So one, somebody shared that they're getting more exercise in than before the quarantine because they've realized how little they were moving throughout the day before, and now just moving around the house or just getting up is proving great. And so kudos to you. I admit one of the things that my husband and I set in is we're going to try to take at least 1, if not 2 walks a day for the sake of, for Levi's sake mostly, and also for our own mental sanity. And so we're racking up the miles, and it's awesome. And then someone else said that one of their wins was saving commute time to spend breakfast and eat real non-cereal food with family. I love how many people are really getting into cooking and just exploring the creativity that they can in every aspect of their life, since they're holed up, and that's an outlet for them. So that's been really fun for me to watch, and I'm so glad. I'd love to hear what kind of breakfast they're serving.
I've been eating eggs almost every day, which it's funny. When I first started working for myself, that was something that I did. And then even just working for myself from home, life just got too busy, even with my kids out of the house. And I've really enjoyed it. In fact, I know that we have a few local Washingtonians on the phone. I drove 25 minutes over the weekend to Bread First, which is a very well-known bakery here in DC.
Down the street from me. That's awesome.
If you order, they'll bring the bread directly to your car. Awesome. It's contactless, you pay over the phone. And it's like, you know, we went and we ordered all these different breads and we made fun meals with them. And, you know, again, it's just like the simple things. And I don't want to minimize the hardship that people are having, right? Especially if you're caring for someone who's sick or elderly, if you have a child with special needs, if you feel nervous that your job might not exist in 2 weeks, or if you've been recently furloughed and laid off. So I don't want to say it's all rainbows and butterflies. I think many of us are going to look back on this, and this is going to be some of the hardest, most trying weeks and months of our professional lives. And to those people, I want to let you know, like, if you're not looking forward to sourdough bread, you are not alone. And one of the things that really hardens me is just seeing the communal shared empathy that we have for some of these COVID-19 job seekers. I see a real openness and willingness to help people who have been laid off in a way where, frankly, I haven't really seen that before. And so I also want to make sure that I share that note because I don't want to glaze over how difficult this is for some people financially, or with some of, perhaps it's an emotional challenge, like this has been triggering for a depression or an addiction issue that they have. These are really real things that are happening, and that's why it's so important to, again, give ourselves that grace. If we can't figure out how to do the tango of COVID-19 life, just keep it in the box. Every day, keep it in the box.
Yeah. Thanks, Randi, for ending on that note, because there's no doubt the panic that sets in, I think it was about a week ago, was probably the first time a paycheck didn't come in for people who have lost their jobs, and the panic that probably brought, and the fear. It's just, it's a super scary time. And I love the last win that we just got was somebody evaluating their priorities and what's important, to your point, hooray, and connecting with others around the country and around the world more so than usual. I think what I'm really observing is how many people are really reconnecting and just reaching out. I've gotten tons of calls from people I admittedly forgot existed because life and time. And it's been so nice to reconnect with people and just hear where they're at and how I might be able to help them through this time. Steve, I'm going to pass it over to you for our last 3 minutes.
Awesome.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Randi, it was so great chatting with you for the last hour.
It's so much fun to take some of the conversations that you and I have and bring them to an audience and get people's questions and feedback. So I hope that Emory also sends out our contact information after. I know, Hannah, I'm sure you would welcome as well. If anyone wants to follow up with me, they're welcome to. And I'm offering a select number of free 30-minute pop-up coaching sessions every week while the epidemic is going, just to make people feel supported and make sure that they have a sounding board if they need it.
That's awesome. Thanks, Randi.
Well, Randi and Hannah, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. We will be sending out your information, a recording of this to everyone who registered, and also posting it online for those that haven't visited. If you go to alumni.emory.edu/digital, that's our new hub for all of our digital engagement activities, from webinars like this to our Emory Explores digital dialogues, which are small group conversations, to socials, just gathering with other Emory alumni in your region or across the world. We hope that you'll check these out. A couple of highlights that I'd like to add in, and Randi, I know you mentioned my beautiful palatial suburban home. I'm crammed into a desk downstairs, and you may hear Daniel Tiger in the background, but we're all working as best we can. A couple of points from Emory and from the Alumni Association. First, as we think about our students that are impacted by COVID, especially our graduating seniors in the class of 2020, I'd encourage you all to demonstrate the power of the Emory Alumni Network by logging on to Emory Connects and creating a profile if you haven't already. Emory Connects is our Emory employment and career networking platform just for Emory alumni in the community. And when you do create your profile, make sure you indicate that you're willing to help out our newest cohort of alumni of the class of 2020 by indicating willing to help, whether it be an internship, whether it be a connection, just an opportunity to chat in a specific region or a specific industry. We want to make sure those career connections are available to you. At the same token, I mentioned our digital engagement opportunities. That's alumni.emory.edu/digital. You can register for a number of sessions. Next week, we have a digital dialogue on caring for your mental health in a time of crisis, a Facebook Live session with a volunteer here in DC, Alexi New, who graduated from the college in 2013, who's going to be bringing her sense of how to bring your best brand forward. If you are a small business owner, an entrepreneur, or just looking to put your brand out there, how you can weave that in a time during the COVID. We'll have a session on Campaign 2020 in the age of social distancing on the 29th. And then another session, a small group discussion on digital as a digital dialogue on parenting and remote learning during COVID-19. As we're pitching it a chance to vent, share tips, tricks, or just talk to other parents. We'll hope you'll join for that. But again, it's alumni.emory.edu/digital. I'm just going to turn it over to my colleague Lane in Atlanta if there's anything else to add before we close on out.
Thanks so much. I just want to reiterate my extreme gratefulness to Randi and Hannah for sharing your expertise. This has been an amazing conversation. We will be sharing the recording with everybody who registered. And also just wanted to say if there's any topics that would be of interest to anyone who has called in for this or any other previous webinars, we'd love to know topics that you want us to bring to you. I think this is a time where we're able to be nimble and reflect and really be very aware of what the needs are across our whole country and internationally. So if there's anything in particular that you'd like to know, please let Steve or myself know, and we'll work to bring that content to you. And with that, I'll wish everyone a happy Friday and happy weekend, and take care, and let's keep washing our hands.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.